All right, good morning, guys. You know, one of the things I love about doing the show, and I do use the word love loosely, is the amount of ways I have to go ahead and learn to do different things, like calling people over in, yes, well, yeah, calling people over in, frickin' England. Yes, hello, and getting all the stuff for that, because I am now using WhatsApp. It's gonna be interesting. Let's go and see.
One, two, three, four.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the fifth episode of Behind the Pen. And you know the times I have to learn new ways to contact people is quite interesting. We're actually using WhatsApp today for Jason Savin to go ahead and call in. Jason, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hello, yes, I'm Jason. Been writing for at least 13, 14 years now, I think. I've lost track. And I'd like to talk about my book, Beyond the Elven Gate, today.
Yeah, but I actually went ahead and checked that out, and in the ebook it said that that's actually the first book you've written. Is that correct?
That's right, yes, it is.
So, for anyone not familiar with this book, Beyond the Elven Gate is actually three short stories, and technically they are all fictional, although the third one has a very unique twist. It's quite enjoyable, it's a good read. Going into the book, actually looking at the introduction, you give a bit of your background in writing in it. And
Yes.
why don't you go ahead and tell anyone who's kind of listening how you got into writing this in the first place?
Yes, I was writing a big book called Kings of Munster. And when I was researching that, I came across other story ideas. Because a lot of the Kings of Munster books are the Elven race. Now, I wanted to include those in my Kings of Munster book, but the book was so huge that I decided to publish them in a separate book. So
Oh,
that's where the third story comes from, which isn't technically a story. It's more like an essay on the fairy race.
yeah.
But there were so many things that I uncovered when I was doing my Kings of Munster books that I thought that people would be as fascinated by those as I am. And the first two stories, the second story, which is everybody's favourite one, which was called Beyond the Elven Gate. I was actually taking my dog for a walk, when I came across this, was like a huge dent in a hedge. In front of this dent was like a tree stump. So I'm assuming that there must have been a tree grown there quite recently that had been chopped down. And because of where the tree had been grown into the bush, made it look like a huge indentation. And when I first saw it from the side, it looked like a tunnel that was going through the bush. And the tree stump looked like a doorstep going into the bush. With me creative mind,
Hmm.
it just made me think that this could be like a tunnel into another world, and that's where the story first came from. The first story in the book, I'm not really sure where that came from. That was some strange, crazy idea I got. And it's very dark. There's quite a lot of swearing in it. My late wife thought I should take the swearing out to make it into a children's, but I didn't really see it as a children's book. I saw it as something much darker than a child's story.
Yep.
So I decided to keep the swearing in and make it a much darker story.
I think you got a pretty good idea there. Yeah, I don't really see it as much of a children's book, but it is definitely an interesting read for an adult. And in that first story, you
Yes,
really,
thank you.
without giving any spoilers away, because I personally despise people who give spoilers, so I'm not going to do it. But in that first story,
Yes.
you will go ahead and, again, without giving any spoilers, it is the feelings of a woman whose child has vanished. You actually went pretty deep in those
Yes.
feelings. You did a really good job. I'm wondering how you managed to just capture that emotion.
The only way I can think of is because I trained as an actor.
Oh,
I got a degree in performing arts. I've done quite a lot of movies. I played lead parts in some of those, and it's the same sort of in-depth, sort of like soul reaching that you do when you're exploring a part in a movie to try and create that character. I feel as though that's greatly helped me in understanding the emotions that someone would go through when they've lost somebody, when they lost a child.
I went ahead and looked at that. You're credited for doing 21 different at least parts.
Well, it was 21 at one point. I think now it's been up to 30. It's been a few years since I've done any acting because I've been concentrating on writing recently.
Yeah, they need to go ahead and update that. But still, that is a. I think you're probably the most famous person I've had on here. But that's
Oh, really? That's very kind.
yeah, but that's awesome, and I would not. It just isn't something I'd think about. But yeah, I can see how your training as an actor and going into those emotions, you'd be able to just reach in the book and be able to visualize it. Because if you're used to reading from a script or something like that, then you kind of are familiar with what to look for to elicit the different emotions for you to channel, and so you're able to turn around and put that in your writing. That is pretty remarkable.
Yes, oh, thank you for that. Thank you.
The second story, honestly, was the ending made me laugh. I don't know if that was something that was intended, but again, without spoilers, it's almost if I had to describe it to someone who isn't familiar with it, I'd be saying it's the inside look of a fairy circle, or the inside look of a different world, and then coming back to a
Yes.
pretty changed world, and oh, that definitely was good for a laugh at the end there, and that really just came in
Oh, that's good.
from just one from your creative mind in kind of one area.
Yes, oh, yes, I did.
Well, just goes to show you, people, you don't need some just dramatic thing going on to inspire your writing. Again, that second story was definitely humorous, definitely light, had a angle that I haven't really seen on a lot of other short stories before, but it wasn't something that came from something, a huge bunch of inspiration. A writer can draw inspiration from anywhere, as long as you can keep an open mind.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Now, you mentioned that the second story is people's favorite, but
It is, yes.
I actually liked the third story
Oh,
because
yes.
yeah, the third story, like you mentioned on it, it's almost a like an essay on the fairy, and it kind of reminds me when I was growing up, I read a book on dragonology, for lack of a better term, and someone doing it as if it was a
Yes.
research team in Victorian England, and really tied into our world, made it seem like they were actually part of our world, and that is something you remarkably captured in there. It's going through as if it's a study on things that actually happened.
Yes, oh, thank you, yes.
That was a basically a came from your Kings of Munster trilogy.
Well, the whole idea about writing stories about the fairies came from the Kings of Munster trilogy. Because when people think that about fairies, they tend to think small creatures with butterfly wings that fly around the garden smiling. But when I researched them,
Mm-hmm.
they've got like a much darker nature.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of research on that.
I have done, yes. I did like 11 and a half years of research to get to from the Kings of Munster trilogy. So I use like a lot of the research in that in me Beyond the Elven Gate book.
And that kind of ties back to something you were talking about in the introduction of your Beyond the Elven Gate. Is you actually mentioned that you don't like it when people invent stuff. Not the classic, hey, these are magical explanations in a fantasy world. You don't like when people kind of break reality, saying something that literally could not happen.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So I think that would have fake news around, and sometimes it's hard to sort of like grasp what is real and what isn't real when you get fed so much false things. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things about the fairy race that seeing how they like help people and do all helpful things, and I have found that they can do that, but you've also got to be very careful with anything to do with the fairies. Just from this research, how much of it is true and how much of it isn't true, it's hard to see it for the reader to decide. But I like to keep things that involve those to be as accurate as possible, and not for people to just invent strange things that's like fantasy things that don't exist, unless you actually say it is fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
rather than bringing things out that look like they're real, but they're obviously not,
Yeah, and I
if
did
that
a
makes sense.
yeah, it makes sense. And you've really used that to try to give your book a real feel so people can read it and become immersed, and there's not something there that's just, oh, wait, no, this literally can't happen. So it kind of breaks that enjoyment. You've really tried to make it something people can read and just envision.
Yes.
And yeah, I can understand we're talking about the fairies. From what I understand, there's a bunch of different legends about fairies, but also there's things that since the last couple hundred years that people have kind of added on to that don't tie into the original folklore whatsoever.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Have you had a lot of trouble doing that? If I'm running through that and kind of sorting everything apart on your Kings of Munster?
No, I haven't really, because
Really?
everything I've looked into it has been quite ancient in nature.
Oh.
I've looked at the ancient Irish myths, to try to gather things from the true source material, as opposed to looking at things that came around in the 20th and 21st century. So I haven't really come across a lot in the research that I've been doing.
So you intentionally went ahead and knew that this was a problem, so you started looking at the original mythology instead of trying to just
Yeah,
sort through everything.
I did. Yes, yes.
So how did you go from acting to writing? It's kind of a little bit of a leap.
Well, it sounds like quite a leap. I think I sort of like fell into acting and writing at around about the same sort of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the writing that I was doing to start with, sort of like wasn't about writing screenplays, and trying to get those sold. It was a long time ago when I was doing that, so that you couldn't just look things up on the internet to find out how you do these things. So I have written a few big scripts that have never been published or anything, or seen by anybody. Um, and then I got into acting at the same sort of time. I must have been in my early 30s at the time. And then as I was doing acting and training to be an actor, there wasn't much work around, but I still wanted to get more experience. So I started writing and producing some of my own short films. I got like actor friends to be in those with us. And I've also written quite a few short plays, and I've had them all performed as well. I've been in a few of my own pieces. So it does sound like a big leap when I've used both of them to further my acting career and further my writing career as well. I suppose so they're both being like hand in hand, really.
Oh, so that makes a lot more sense. It wasn't something that you headed on over to. It just started out doing both at the same time. That's a really neat look on
Yeah,
it. Thank you.
yes, yes, it sounds it. Yes.
Do you have a particular writing routine that you go through or writing process?
Um, I wish I had a routine. I try to write when I've got time. I'd spend hours just scrolling through my phone and not completely procrastinating. So, but I think that there's a lot of writers who are the same.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a writing routine. When I've written anything and I've got it looking perfect, then I'll go through it and rewrite it over and over again until I'm 100% happy with it. So anything that I put out there, it's got my name on it. And if I wrote anything that wasn't up to a high standard, I would feel that it destroy anything else that I write after that. So I do make sure that everything is written up to the best standard that I could possibly write it before I would publish anything.
All right, it's definitely just writing whenever you got time and going through making sure that it's as good to as close to perfect as possible. That's pretty admirable.
Yes.
Some people just kind of fire from the hip. Some people have an exhaustive routine. And talking to different authors and figuring out kind of what they do is always interesting to see. And
It is, yes, it is. It's fascinating hearing about the author's work.
is there, and speaking of your Kings of Munster trilogy, is there anything you want to share about that? Any teasers to give to anyone listening? Anything you want to talk about the process?
Well, it's been a huge process to get me Kings of Munster books written. It took us 11 and a half years of writing. I published the books about 3 years ago. And when I was publishing them, I wasn't in a very good place, to be honest, because my wife had passed away the year before, and I completely immersed myself in writing them, in getting them finished at the end. And I published them, and I'd spend a huge amount of time at the end to make sure that they were 100% perfect. Because I wasn't in a very good place, I thought I would have to look at them again to make sure that they are as good as I could get them. And I found that I need to work on them more. So I'm re-editing all three books of my trilogy. I've got the first one finished now. I'm halfway through the second one, and I've got a new artist who's going to really bring new life into the covers as well. So it's all very exciting with me Kings of Munster. And that's the project I'm working on at the moment.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear. That it's. I am sorry about the loss of your wife. That I can't imagine how
Thank
the
you.
place had put it in. But the fact that you're going back to something that you've put your heart and soul into to re-release, it's really awesome to hear. And I know that I definitely look forward to those being done and be able to read those.
Oh,
It
thank you
sounds
so
like you've
much.
put a lot of effort into it, which I think
Yes, definitely.
it's pretty common around. But it's good to see that when like people will go ahead and double down on their dreams instead of just walking away.
Yes,
That's an important part. But
yes, it is.
something I always like to ask authors when they come on and when we're getting ready to close out is for anyone who's just starting out in writing, do you have any advice for them?
I would say that I would work on every sentence until the sentence sings. I've spent like 3 hours on one sentence, um, because and rewriting it and constantly rewriting it, and it just hasn't been quite right. But then after you spend so long, then when you read it, it sounds like a poem, the sentence. So I'd say don't rush your work. Spend as long as you can on every single sentence. Make every sentence the best you possibly can, and get a good editor to go through it, to make sure that everything is perfect before you release it.
I think the first draft of every book is shit, but you can definitely refine it down until it's amazing. That's kind of the key is you can just write one off, fire it off, and it's going to be something you're like, why did I do that? Or you could go ahead and take the time to refine it and create a truly wonderful work of art. So
Yes, you can do. Yes,
thank you very much.
I've come across authors who publish like 5 books in a year, and you sort of think, well, what sort of quality could that be?
5 books in it. That's nuts. My fastest one I ever did was
Yeah.
6 months, and that was a hellish process to try to go ahead and get it all refined and nice on out. I cannot imagine how someone's trying to pump out 5 books that had any type of
Yes,
quality.
crazy. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for taking your time out of your day to come join us and kind of giving us an inside look of everything that's going on.
Thank you for this opportunity to share my works with your listeners. It's I'm so pleased that you've allowed us to do that.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, everyone, that's Jason Savin, and his works are very affordable, very nice for an afternoon read. Would you like to tell everyone where they're at?
If you go on Amazon, me Beyond the Elven Gate is available on there. And me Kings of Munster, the trilogy is The Island of Destiny, Curse of the Airshee, and The Time of Heroes. That they're also available on there. And the first book is the redone version, but not with the new artwork.
And again, looking at Elven Gate one, that one's only 99 cents on Kindle and $5 for a paperback. So people, essentially for the less than you
Yes.
normally go into Starbucks, you'd be walking out with a very enjoyable afternoon read. And again, Jason, just
You
thank
could
you,
do, yes.
thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day as well.
You as well, sir.